G'day friends, welcome to day 29 of Inktober 2018. Before we get started, I just want to point out what I'm doing. I'm actually saturating this page because I wanted to try this technique that I stumbled across as I was experimenting the other day and playing. I had a wet piece of cardstock that I didn't realize was wet, and as I went to go and draw on it, everything kind of bled out and was like really furry looking and fuzzy, and I thought that would be a really fun way to illustrate a piece, but I just didn't know what piece it would be for. And so the prompt today is, I think if I think for too long every day, my cranium critters fly away. So in my head, that was Daisy's way of saying, like, I'm not allowed to think too much because my brain will go away. And like, she puts a cap on her thinking for the day. and this is a day that she's perhaps overthought something, and she's spent way too long just giving that time and attention, and her brain just kind of exploded and all of her little critters in there flew away. So and to me, the critters are like little creatures that help her make decisions, and once they're gone, she's just kind of vacant. Is that too heavy for a children's book? I'm not sure. Okay, so what I'm doing is actually spritzing the page, and I don't want to puddle or pull up any water. I want to make sure that the water is saturated into the page, because I don't want any of that ink to completely float away. I just want it to spread out a little bit and feather. And for me, it's because when I associate having, you know, nothing going on in your head, like, I think everything gets really fuzzy, and you can't, like, if you've thought too much, everything starts to blur together. So there is a bit of a there's a bit more of a thought process in this one than most, even as simple as it looks. But yeah, that's why I wanted to try this technique for that. I was super happy to have stumbled across it. I know it's not a technique that I'll do all the time, or it's not like, you know, this is, I've found a new art style that I'm never going to leave. Like, not at all. This is just something that I stumbled across. I wanted to create a piece with it, and that was it, and that totally satisfied my curiosity about that. But it was really cute. I like it. So I also got the, I didn't know how to do the cranium critters because I didn't know what they looked like. To me, it was almost like if you got really, really microscoped in on, that's not a word, if you got a microscope and you looked really, really close at organisms, like little, you know, like organisms, is that the word? Molecules? No, that's not it. There's little creatures, and all I can think of now is a dust mite, but it's not a dust mite. It's, they've got little, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm thinking about bacteria. What am I thinking of? I hope there are nice organisms, otherwise now I'm just grossed out. No, so anyway, those were the kind of things that I based it off of in my head, and I thought, well, I don't want to draw every single one of those to take forever. Just totally outing myself for being lazy there. No, I just didn't want them to fully take up a lot of room, and I'm not great at illustrating small. So what I did was just flick some of that ink, that diluted ink, all across the page, and then I gave all these little dots, little droplets of ink. I gave them little faces and little bodies, little hands, little circles, and just little motifs to make them look like these little creatures that flew out of her head. And I really love how this turned out. I think it was really, really fun, totally different to anything I typically would have tried. And I think that's the beauty of playing off to the side. I'm not going to say that you have to do that, because obviously, like, if you're not doing any videos, then all of your playing is off to the side. But if you are someone out there that does videos, I know I harp on about this, but there is such a benefit to devoting time to this and working on your craft and working on your art. Because even if it's not, like, you know, none of us are exhibiting at galleries, and we're not trying to sell our art journals for $4 billion. Like, there's just a sense of pride that comes with that, and also, you know, this accidental sense of confidence that comes when you practice some stuff. But it's in all that playtime, it's in all of that experimental phase. Well, it's in that playtime where you're not trying to achieve a lot that you do get a little bit more experimental, I've noticed. Myself, anyway. I'm a little more open to subject matter and genre. I'm a little more open to style. I'm a little more open to medium when I'm experimenting, because I'm not trying to achieve anything in particular, and the camera's off, so no one's really going to see what I'm doing, and, you know, that's when I'm more comfortable to break all these rules and put things together that people say not to do, and leave the heat gun on for a little too long, and bubble up some acrylic paint to get some texture. Like, it becomes very sciencey in there, and I know nothing about science. So yeah, no, I think, you know, playing off camera, if you're someone that does create YouTube videos, is essential, and I mean, I think for me, I assume it's something that people just want to do anyway. But I do know that the struggle for me was that when I started to create content for YouTube, there was a lot of times where I would start to create for myself and I would think, oh, someone might like to see that. Or I've got something that I want to share when I'm doing this, and maybe I don't want to sit down and make another video tomorrow about exactly the same thing. So that's when that self-control comes in and you have to kind of say, no, this is just for you. If you want to show people that, you have to do it again. Like, don't be lazy. And that was my issue. I didn't want to have to redo a whole thing that I've already done just to show people. And I think we can all agree that, you know, once we've done something once and we've liked it, it becomes really difficult to do it again and like it as much as you did it the first time. So I do think there's a benefit to it though, because your headspace is in a totally different place. Mine, anyway. I should stop saying your. I'm just going to say mine. I'll tell you how I feel. I'm getting like really how I feel very candid this week on YouTube, I've noticed. If I sit down to turn on a video, right? If I can put the camera up there, put it in the little claw and press record, I know that I've got an hour before I have to kind of, take a break or stop the video and make sure that the clips aren't too long. And so I'm usually just trying to work through a stretch of time, and I feel the pressure of that time. And I'm always kind of checking to make sure that the camera is not turned off. And as simple as it might be, but taking yourself away from what you're doing to check something does take you kind of out of it. If you've ever been in one of these like trance-like states when you're creating, it is really hard to get there when you're filming because your mind is split in two different places, or maybe even a few different places. I put music on, or I put YouTube videos on so I can try and tune out, but ultimately I'm working, and so my brain does have to be switched on. And especially if I'm trying to show something specific, maybe I'll have to live voice over it and talk through the techniques, and even then I'll have to have done a lot of pre-prep for that to make sure that I'm getting all the information that I need to get in the video. It starts to become very work focused. Now, when I go to sit down and create and there's no camera on, I am pulling out paints, I've got pencils flying everywhere, my desk is a mess, I've got bits of paper flying out of the printer, like, it's just kind of a free-for-all, and I'm working on the side of the desk. I might cut something over by the printer, I might throw something on the ground because I don't need it anymore and pull up a different journal. That process becomes really hard to capture on film, nor would I want it to capture on film because, that's not... for me, I don't think it's effective for people to be learning much from that, other than just to have a gawk at it. You know what I mean? Like, it's fun to kind of look at, I guess, and that's why I've got the studio notes videos if you ever wanted to get a behind-the-scenes look. But as far as actually creating, an Inktober piece, it's not going to be sustainable to create all of these Inktober videos if I was just doing it like I would typically sit down to create, because I might throw half this stuff out, I might not like the size I'm doing out and put it in a different journal, and maybe I don't want to do ink all of a sudden, I'll just change it up and just do something else, suddenly it's not Inktober. So yeah, for someone like myself, I do have to kind of switch gears when I put the camera on. So if I were only doing stuff on camera, if everything you saw was everything I did, I would find it really difficult to feel free in that. I need to... And there's a temptation there, believe me, there's a real temptation, even when I'm working off camera and even when I'm working just for myself, there's a real temptation just to turn the video on. And so sometimes when I am really tempted to do that, I'll go on Instagram Live instead, because that's a completely different feeling, and it's only an hour, and I actually like the social atmosphere of that. But as far as if I'm just working in my off-camera journal and I start a piece that I think I really like, I'm not going to turn the video on. Like, that's a journal I promised would never be on camera, and I had to do that for myself just because I know what I'm like. I will be so tempted to do it. And here's the kicker too. Like, I understand on Patreon, like when I had to have 2 videos out a week, that I could, there'd be more pressure for me just to film whatever because I needed to get a video out. And I'm glad that I never got to that point. But for YouTube, I'm like, I don't have a set schedule, so why do I freak out about this? I could just do it whenever I feel like it. But no, I get so carried away. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy sharing it with you. So it becomes really difficult. You do have to I myself have to set some really firm rules in place for myself, some boundaries. Otherwise, I'll just film everything and I'll start to resent it. The work will become sloppy. There won't be any growth. You won't see me trying new things or having discovered many new ideas or fun things to do. Because let's be real, of all the fun things that I think I've ever come up with and put on YouTube, 5 to 10% of them happened while the camera was on. The rest were all things that happened as I was working, by myself at night, or I was just working on the couch, or I was having a fun, afternoon out. Like, all of those things as I was creating off camera were where those ideas came about. And it's I just think it's really, really hard in that headspace where you're working and you need to get something specific done. I don't think you're open to many of those experimental ideas, because in experimenting you're going to take a lot of time. You might not get something good out of it, and then all of a sudden you've wasted 2 hours worth of footage on nothing. So that's why I think you really need to... why am I saying you? I'm not talking to anyone. It's the proverbial you. No, I just think I really needed to be firm with myself in that. And it was for the benefit of everyone. It's not so that you could necessarily have any content that looked different or felt different. It was more fun. It was more so that for me, I would never get on here and start to resent the fact that I was putting up so many videos, or that I felt like I had given everything away to YouTube, or that wasn't fun for me anymore, that it didn't feel personal for me, it didn't feel like my own kind of creative expression. I think that's what I really wanted to safeguard myself from, and so I definitely did that, and I think it's been really, really good. I prioritize it. If there's not enough time to do it, I find some time to do it, and that's been going on for months now. I used to just kind of wing it, and it would be a few days, like maybe 2 or 3 days a week, where I would really set aside time for myself to play. But more often than not, the busier I get, the more time I actually set aside to do it, because when you're putting out like 31 Inktober videos and 6 Whimsy Ween videos or whatever it is, like there's a crazy upload schedule this month. You actually creativity, it kind of stimulates more creativity, but you burn out a lot quicker. And so I notice that I burn out when I feel like I'm not filling up my own tank, and the way I need to do that is to set aside time for myself. So it's not necessarily that I feel like I'm run out of ideas, it's that I run out of the motivation to do it, or the passion to do it, and that's typically when I feel like I'm not investing enough in myself. So yeah, it's a super interesting process, and I think for everything there's a solution. It may not be the best one, but there's definitely one to work with, and bide your time until you find a better solution. But for me, definitely setting aside time just for myself to do that and to play and indulge. And I have even gotten to the point where I will prioritize that over creating a video. So say if I have a video scheduled to film today and I get the urge to try something, I will put off filming that video to play with that idea, because 9 times out of 10 I'll start the video and I'll just be thinking about that other idea, and I'll labor through that video until I don't like it anymore, scrap the video and try it anyway. So yeah, I've just kind of tried to streamline that process. It's honestly, it's cyclical with me. I'm so predictable. I can kind of guess my own patterns, and I think being my own boss nowadays, I have to be a lot more strict with myself, because I respond to a very strict management style, so that's how I have to be with myself, I think. Although I find myself really trying to pull a stunt on me. Like I sometimes I really procrastinate so hard that I think if I were truly an employee, I would fire myself. Anyway, that's all for today. Hope it was interesting. I just maybe knowing a bit about that behind the scenes process might help you understand how some of this stuff all looks completely random, or where it comes from. It does come from somewhere, usually just an experimental playtime like this one right here. I love the piece. I love how it turned out. I think it totally captured that fuzzy feeling in my head I feel like when I think for too long, which I've just made a prompt for Daisy. And I love all the little critters. I think they're so fun. I'd love to turn them into little stickers, but they are tiny, so who knows. I've said that out loud now, so it'll probably never happen. Leave least I never promised it. I'm saying I would love to do that, but I will most probably definitely not do that. But I think they're cute. If you want to make them stickers, go ahead. You know how to do it. Okay, that's it for today. Check out the Addams Family Values sketch flicks. I'll see you soon. Bye.